University students aren't getting what they paid for in this pandemic at university. It's not fair what's going on, and something needs to change. When you think about it, what are university students paying for, right? They're paying for the ability to access to facilities, which someone on a vocational course like broadcast journalism is absolutely fundamental. Art degrees, film production, all these sorts of different courses. Access to the facilities is fundamental. Many of you at home that are at university would have been sold a university course on the basis that that university has top tier facilities, has industry level facilities. So now you're not getting access to those facilities. That simply isn't good enough. I had a lecturer tell me last year when encouraging us to access all the facilities, he said, use the facilities. This is where all your fees are going. So if all our fees are going to the facilities, why are we, and we're not being able to use them, why are we still paying full price? Facilities, that's one thing that we're paying for. We're also paying for networking. Networking is a huge thing at university. You know, for example, I'm going into broadcast journalism. The idea that I get to meet all these different like-minded people who might be able to give me a job every now and again, who might be able to jump on a project with me as a journalist or something like that. You know, getting to know all these like-minded, creative, motivated people is a huge part of university. But instead of doing that now, we're sat behind a computer on Blackboard or Teams or something like that, look at an anonymous picture and the name underneath it going, hello Nicole, how are you? Like, it's not good enough, isn't it? And we're not getting that fundamental aspect of university, but we're still paying £9,250 a year on top of other stuff that I'll get to later. Moving on, what else are you paying for at university? You're paying to have a good time, aren't you? You are paying to have a good time. Now that might sound silly because university is an educational process, and so at the core of it, education is what matters. But you're also paying for the experience. You're paying for the time to get away, to grow as a human being, to party as well, to get that part of your life out the way. You know, university sells itself on come to our university because we've got great nightlife. It's a fundamental aspect of university, and we're not getting that side of things either. And that could be linked to the networking thing, isn't it? The idea of going out, having fun, meeting people, and sort of being extroverted and really learning more about yourself. You're not getting any of that process, and so you're missing out on the networking and having a good time as well. Finally, the degree, you're still getting that one, right? Finally, there's one of four that you're getting, but you're not getting the full, the true degree, are you? Because at least my course, and I'm sure many other courses, prides itself on the degree setting you up, being ready to go into the industry, right? So, for example, I'm on broadcast journalism. It prides itself on, listen, you come and do our course, get our degree, and that degree will signify that you are able to go into a newsroom, to go into a workplace, to go into ITV or BBC and sit there and be part of the team that's going to be creating the news, right? And so we're not getting that either. Yes, we're still getting the degree, but that degree for me is worth less because, yes, we have done little bits of journalism here and there. But for example, at the end of last year, I was supposed to be doing news days. We didn't do that. Instead of making our own news package, we edited together a little bit of everyone did got the same footage, and we all had to edit a news package together just from that footage. Even this year, yes, the remote news days have been okay, I guess, but we're not getting the fundamental things that we paid for. And that's disappointing, right? And I'm not saying that the online tuition is bad because of the universities. It's good if that's what you're paying for. You can do an online course, for example, for about $2,000 or $3,000 a year, and if I was paying $2,000 or $3,000 a year, I wouldn't be complaining because that's what I signed up for. But I'm not. I'm paying £9,250 a year tuition fees alone, and I am getting what someone would get for the price of $2,000 or $3,000, and that's why I think university students are upset. They're upset because not only are they paying that, but we feel like we're getting ignored, right? You always look at the news where Boris Johnson or someone else in the government is speaking. Gavin Williamson, for example, is speaking, and whenever they talk about education, they talk about year 1 to year 13, for example. And I understand that those years are a more fundamental part of the conversation because those people they're not self-sufficient, you know what I mean? So getting them back to school is more important than getting universities necessarily back to school because, if you get kids back to school, you allow other people to go out, the parents to go out and work, and therefore we can get the economy back going, etc. I understand that they're also in a more fundamental stage of their development process, So I also understand that getting them back is more important than getting us back on the piss at university. I understand that, but it's the lack of recognition that we've had throughout the news that's making university students so frustrated, right? We feel like we're being ignored and nothing's happening. So you pay £9,250 a year for tuition fees for a course that really isn't giving you what you paid for. I understand that we're in a pandemic. I'm sympathetic with everyone about that, and I understand that the tuition couldn't have really got much better. We had to do it online. It had to be that way, and I'm very grateful for the university for putting in the effort that they have done. Same with the government. I understand that the government have tried very hard to get these things in place for online tuition to work as efficiently as it possibly can. My complaints aren't about that. My complaints are the fact that that's a £2,000 course. That's not a £9,250 course. Do you know what I mean? It just isn't worth what you're getting. But you've got to remember as well, if I was paying for an online course, I'd be at home creaming off my mum and dad. Do you know what I mean? I'd be getting a job and earning. I'd be making profit if I was an online course, because I'd be staying with my mum and dad, not having to pay any rent, and then on top of that, earning money through a job. But instead, as you can tell, I'm not from Manchester. I go to university in Manchester, right? So I'm having to pay rent for a place up here because I just can't commute every day. So you're paying what, maybe £5,000 a year plus bills for a place that you're not allowed to live in. So what's that now up to? About 15 grand a year for tuition fees for an online course and a flat that you're now no longer allowed to live in, right? Now the university, my university, which is fantastic, I'm sure other universities have offered a similar thing. They offered a rent relief fund. Now that's fantastic. I understand that I'm very appreciative of that, and I'm sure it helped out a lot of people. But there are fundamental issues within that rent relief fund, right? So first of all, as of December 2020, you had to submit your bank accounts stating that you had less than £500 in all accounts at that time. Now I understand what that's doing. That's trying to, bring up the most vulnerable, the least fortunate people out who need that fund, that relief the most. I understand that, but my issue is, and I'm not even arguing against the fact that those people need help first. What I am saying is that this is an aid. These aren't benefits. This is an aid. This is compensation for everyone. This is a refund, right? So in no other walk of life have people gone, well, you've got less money in relation to a refund in the pandemic. You've got less money, therefore I shall give you more money and no one else any money, right? For example, the furlough scheme. You were furloughed because you were working. You weren't furloughed because you had less money than the next man. Same with my Manchester United season ticket, right? I bought a Manchester United season ticket, not gone to a game, unfortunately, but I've got Manchester United season ticket. I got refunded. I didn't get refunded less because Bob in East Stand has got less money than me. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense of that. I understand you can't really apply the benefits model to this refund compensation model. It just isn't the same. And that rent relief fund as well was only up to about £1,000. I think it was up to £1,000, but the university made it very clear that you should not expect full price. You should not expect that £1,000. You had to have about £0.5 in your account to get the full grand. But also, even if you do get the £4,000, where's the other £4,000 coming from? Do you know what I mean? Like, plus bills. It's not enough. I understand, again, it's relief. It's not a full compensation. It's not a full refund. We're not even asking for that, in fairness. But it's just not good enough. And you have to think as well, it works a little bit strangely, because if you are less fortunate and you are less well off, you might have a job. You might be saving. You might really understand the meaning of money, right? And so therefore, you go out and get a job. You go out and save. And if you've got £501 in your account as of December 2020, you're now no longer entitled to any rent relief, right? So it doesn't even bring out the less fortunate. In many ways, often it can bring out the most lazy. I know loads of people that really don't have that much money, right? Do you know what I mean? And they've gone out and got a job and worked really hard to save and give themselves a little bit of a chance to go out, buy a nice couple of clothes here and there. But they're working all the time at Nando's. Now, all of a sudden, because they've got £1 or a little bit more over the £500 as of December 2020, they're no longer entitled to any rent relief, which isn't even, anywhere near what you should be expected to have as relief. But now they're no longer entitled to that, as opposed to someone who has a bit of money, whose parents give him money every week or something like that. They've not gone out and got a job, and they've got 50, 60, 100 quid in their account, and they've gone, yeah, I'll have that rent relief, please. And now all of a sudden they've got 800 quid in their account from this university. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't think that was a good enough strategy. And as I said, we're not fully asking, or at least I'm not asking for a full refund. I'm not asking for £5,000, for 15 grand back, because I do understand that we are still paying for a service. You know, I'm still getting online tuition, and now actually I'm going in once a week, and that's fantastic. I am ultimately still getting at the end of the 3 years a degree, and you know, these years are a fundamental part of that process in getting that degree. I understand that I'm getting set assignments. I understand that I'm getting marked, and I understand all these things. So we're not asking for 100% of a refund, but we're also just asking for answers, for a dialogue. We feel like we've been left out so much. There's such little dialogue between university students and the government, at least in plain sight. So it's just, we're asking for answers, and I'm also asking for somewhat of a refund, to be fair, because I do think we're entitled to it. So what can we do? I was sitting there thinking, before I made this video, what can I do in order to try and affect change? So I emailed my MP, who then got in touch with the university, and university got back to the MP with this response. They said, academic teams across the university have undertaken a huge amount of work to respond to the COVID-19 restrictions. Fair enough. With the academic delivery and assessment being adjusted accordingly to ensure the best possible student experience in spite of the difficult period we find ourselves in. It might be the best possible experience, but it's not $9,000 though, is it? That's my issue. I understand that this is the best possible experience that we probably could be getting because it's an awful situation, and so therefore we're not expecting to get the full university experience. No one's saying that. That would be ridiculous. We're in a pandemic, but we are still paying for the full experience, so therefore, to an extent, we should expect that. Drop the fees, and then we can start lowering our expectations. The university then went on to say that the university and the Students' Union are united in our desire to see the government take a sector-wide approach to this issue, rather than leaving it to the universities. And that's a huge point. The government aren't taking control of this situation. Now, the government has succeeded in some places in the pandemic. The vaccine rollout has gone absolutely fantastic, and you know, we're all proud of England and the government for doing that. There are other places where the government have failed the country and its people. Again, everyone knows that, but this is an area where I think the government really do need to take control over the situation. It shouldn't be left for individual unis to take responsibility of the situation to go and refund their students. If anything, they shouldn't have to refund anyone. It's the government who should have to take control and refund the students and people that are paying for university. Now, this point was echoed by Dr. Gavin Conlon, the economist specialising in student finance. He said that if universities were asked to repay £1,000 to all first-year students, it would cost the sector about 375 million quid. He said, to put it into context, it's about 3 or 4% of the total income associated with teaching for that cohort. So it's a huge amount of income. It shouldn't be on the universities to refund the students. It should be on the government to refund their students. And that's where we feel like we're getting let down. Now, again, I don't know how much we can do or what we can do to try and make this situation better. I'm making this video in an attempt to reach out to people to try and raise awareness on it. I understand. I'm Sander Segers from The Sit Down, who lives in, I'm not going to give my address away, but who lives in Salford. You know what I mean? I don't know how much power I have. I've emailed the MP. They got back to me saying that really they can't do that much about it. What I did find interesting actually was that the MP got back to me, my local MP got back to me and was saying, the government don't really tend to listen to, suggestions from the opposition party. And as much as I sympathise with that, and as much as I understand that might be true, it did feel a little bit like political point scoring. I'm not political point scoring. I don't want any political point scoring. You don't have to win me over to vote for you now, next year, in 4 years' time. Just keep your political point scoring to yourself, and how about you give me my 15 grand? Do you know what I mean? To be fair, it's not even 15 grand. We haven't even touched on the maintenance loan on top of that, right? You've got your £9,250 for your tuition fees. You've got about 5 grand plus bills for your rent, so that takes us to about 14 to 15 grand. And then on top of that, you've got your maintenance loan, right, which can go from about 4 grand to I think about 8 grand, roughly between that. So what's that now? You're talking 19 to about £23,000 a year for an online course and a flat you're not allowed to live in. How about you keep your political point scoring to yourself and you give me my money back? Do you know what I mean? Again, I'm not asking for a full refund. I'm asking for a percentage of a refund and answers and a dialogue. That's a huge thing. Now, I know some people have suggested that There's been suggestions that, we'll make the interest on the loan less, or we'll take the interest on the loan away. No, that's like saying, oh, how about this? You'll still have your money to pay back, but we won't make it any worse. No, it shouldn't be, oh, we're not going to make it any worse. It should be, right, we're going to make it better for you. Do you know what I'm saying? The interest shouldn't be taken away. It should be that the actual fees themselves should come down. I don't think that's good enough, that the taking away of the interest. There's also been suggestions that we'll scrap the maintenance loan, or rather that we'll scrap that debt at least. I'm open to that conversation. I think that's definitely something that we can look into. Again, I want to keep reiterating, I'm not asking, and we're not asking for 100% of a refund. We're not asking to give us 23 grand and how about we don't pay you back any of it. Like that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that we need to have some sort of compensation, because what we're getting isn't what we're paid for. And in every other walk of life, people are getting refunded. My Man United season ticket, as I said, I've got 100% refund, right? But they're still losing out on money, but I'm not getting what I paid for. I paid to go to Old Trafford 20-odd games a season, but I'm not getting that, so therefore I'm getting my money back. The same with university students, but for some reason we're being completely ignored. So listen, I don't know exactly what we can do. I've written to my MP, I got responses, but how effective those responses are actually going to end up being, I don't know. Listen, I'm making this video in an attempt to connect with university students, but not only you guys, but also other people, parents, and government ministers, maybe, potentially. You don't never know how far a video like this can go. But all I'm trying to do is do my bit. So listen, share the video. I'm not even just saying that for views. I'm genuinely not saying that at all for views. I could go and get Jackmate on the podcast again and do good views. I just genuinely care about this, and I think it's important that university students are heard, listened to, and compensated, because ultimately they're not getting what they're paid for. So listen, if I could encourage you all to share the video, but not only that, forget that as well. Write to your MPs, make a noise about it, keep posting about it, because the only way that we are going to get heard and something is going to happen is if we make a little bit of a fuss about it. Because if we all just sit back and go, nothing we can do, then ultimately nothing's going to ever happen, because they're going to keep that money and then you guys can just pay us that back. Do you know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. So make sure that you're heard, make sure that you share videos like this and other videos, and keep posting about it. Have conversations with your parents about it, get them to get on the bandwagon, if you will, and get them to start speaking about it to people that they care about, the people that they know that have influence, because ultimately the further that we talk about it, the more that we talk about it, the further the reach goes, the more likely that something is ultimately going to happen. So listen, I don't know what the answer is. I don't really know what percentage of a compensation, of a refund, that we're truly asking for. But we're asking for dialogue. We are asking for some sort of compensation. And as I said, fundamentally, a dialogue and some answers is what's most important. So, as I said, share the video. I'm not even going to ask you to subscribe, but if you want to, you can. Like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Ta-da.